The Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Charlie Maynard.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a budget driven far more by political calculation than by the economic realities the country is facing. The Chancellor has an enormous majority, on paper at least, and the country desperately needs change. And yet we now have a second budget where the government has failed to demonstrate that it has any big ideas to get the economy moving. However, before getting into that, I want to focus on some positives. I welcome some of the announcements the Chancellor made last week, which will help households who have been struggling with the cost of living. Lifting the two-child benefit cap, this will be worth up to £5,000 per year to each of the more than 500 families in my Witney constituency who have been impacted by the cap. Too many children and families have been trapped in poverty because of the previous decision to impose this cap and the government's previous stubborn decision to keep it. I just wish it had been done a year ago, and I give my commiserations to the brave Labour MPs who lost the whip, standing up for a policy which their party now finally accepts. I also welcome cutting energy bills by removing the renewables levy. This was something we Liberal Democrats have been calling on the Chancellor to do. It will make a difference to families struggling with sky-high fuel bills, and I wish they had gone further, rather than just removing 75% of the levy and only for 3 years. We were proposing to fund the renewables obligation instead from a windfall tax on the excess profits in the banking sector, which have resulted from quantitative tightening, something that would have happened now rather than deferred taxation the Chancellor is proposing, which may or may not happen. Both these changes will make struggling families' lives a little easier and are very much welcomed. Similarly, doubling remote gaming duty, something we have also been calling for, is clearly a sensible move. This is one way to raise much-needed revenue without increasing the burden on hard-working families, but it's comparatively small, raising only £1 billion a year. And the sad truth is that these are all small wins in the context of the huge challenges we face.
Will you give way?
Yes, I will.
I thank him for giving way. I just thought before he gets onto a part of the speech that I don't think I'll like as much as what he's already said, give him an opportunity to also welcome the freezing of rail fares for the first time in 30 years, which for my constituents means almost £300 off the season ticket into London for commuters in Bracknell.
Yes, I welcome it. The OBR has marked down economic growth from each of the next 4 years. So that's economic growth being marked down for each of the next 4 years. That is bad news. We have a ballooning debt which is now sitting at £2.9 trillion. Our debt costs have tripled in the last 5 years. Yes, that's your fault. And our government's debt is now more expensive than Italy's. And yes, this has all happened on the Conservatives' watch, but we now have a situation where 11% of government spending is just going to cover the interest payments, not even to pay down the debt itself. And the Chancellor has given no indication that she is serious about addressing this. Across the 5 years of the forecast, the Chancellor proposes to deliver a reduction in our net borrowing of just 0.004 of 1% of GDP. And I question her tactics too. What is the sense in taxing salary sacrifice schemes when we know the strain the state pension and social care systems are under, and we need people to save more, not less? Doesn't common sense tell us that discouraging people from saving for retirement now will only lead to a greater burden on the public purse in the long run? Then there's the desperate state of our SEND provision. The SEND national deficit overspend is forecast to reach £17.8 billion by March 2028. The government has said they will cover costs directly from that point on, but they have given no answer as to how this huge bill will be settled up. In Oxfordshire alone, the SEND annual overspend is expected to reach £153 million by March 2026. Why are we waiting 2.5 years to do something about this? And as per Policy Decision 37, the government determines it will go further on efficiencies and savings in public services. But not just yet. There are zero governmental cost savings in each of the next 3 years. And then miraculously, we expect £4 billion in savings in 29-30, the other side of a general election. How can the country take the government seriously when it takes this approach? This last instance highlights the problem with the fiscal framework the government has set itself. The rules that the current budget must be in surplus in 29-30 and the aim of ensuring debt is falling as a share of the economy by 29-30 are all well and good. but entirely excluding the intermediate years from the calculation serves our country extremely badly. This government is now gaming this system in the same way the Conservatives did before them, by adjusting everything in year 5 to perfectly line up, with more spending early on and tax rises deferred, possibly into the never-never. Let's look instead at international examples of how national budgets are set to understand why the UK is so ineffective at controlling its debt. The government could take inspiration from the Swedish model of tax scrutiny. 30 years since introducing these changes and aided by strong economic growth, Sweden has reduced its national debt from nearly 80% to 32%. And yes, Sweden had COVID too. Meanwhile, our own national debt stands at around 95%. A key component of the solution is that we need to substantially strengthen the scrutiny powers of this chamber when it comes to the government's financial management. This 4-day debate clearly does not provide an effective scrutiny function, and there is no meaningful ability for Parliament to amend the budget once it is announced. Our country is the poorer for this approach. Secondly, of course, we need to seek a deal with Europe, which captures the economic benefits of the European market, one which is 5 times bigger than our own, while maintaining control of our borders. And this should start with negotiating a new customs union with the EU. The US's National Bureau of Economic Research last month published a paper that found that Brexit had cut UK GDP by between 6 and 8%, with our economy now being £170 billion smaller than it would otherwise have been. The House of Commons Library found that we are losing £90 billion in tax revenues every year as a result of Brexit. That's an enormous number. It's 2/3 of the UK's entire annual budget deficit of £138 billion and nearly 80% of our entire annual debt expense of £114 billion, or our defence, security, prisons and courts budget all combined. The government now finally acknowledges that Brexit has left our country poorer, weaker and more divided, but is still unwilling to do almost anything material about it. In conclusion, I was elected in 2024 by the Witney constituents to do all I can to make their lives better and our country better. This budget is a key lever through which to do this, and I am deeply dismayed at the lost opportunity that this budget represents.